Hey guys, I'm back with another video quickly, just talking about the new laws that have been just implemented by World Rugby. They've just come up a couple of days ago with a whole bunch of new laws coming out. And the one that's received the most attention, of course, has been the 20-minute red card law, which has created a lot of controversy. And I think we should look at some of these laws that they're doing and just maybe talk about where rugby's going, because I think there's a bigger conversation here. World Rugby keeps on saying these are fan-focused laws that they keep on doing. They keep on saying it's to speed up the game, to make the game better for fans, and they keep on saying they're consulting fans. Now, if you're one of those fans that consulted, please leave a comment in the comments, because I haven't seen World Rugby consult any fans anywhere, and nobody that I know knows that. And when they've been asked about it, they keep quiet. And World Rugby is notoriously not an organisation that really comes out and is open about their policies. Extremely clandestine at times. And we can talk for hours about the stuff they do in terms of marketing the game and getting the game more popular. Last year's World Cup was a perfect example. Just when the rest of the world, you look at some of the sports like UFC and those, and I've been quite vocal on Twitter about this, when those sports market themselves, they do it exceptionally well. They make sure fans have a sort of a part in that marketing. That they embrace, the social media trends and what fans do and things the fans create. And all that we saw World Rugby do in the last year's Rugby World Cup is come down with a whole ton of bricks on anybody who dared post anything on social media content. Now, my view is quite clear on this. I do a lot of stuff. I try not to use copyrighted material as much as possible, because I understand the broadcasting agreements and all that. But, on Twitter or on YouTube or something, it's different if somebody's trying to broadcast a game or trying to steal your content, etc. But at the end of the day, by taking a clip that's 30 seconds long, news organizations have always had this deal with broadcasters that you can use any clip that's 30 seconds long, or I think it's up to 2 minutes, and it wouldn't be considered copyrighted. Now, so for some reason, that doesn't work when it comes to rugby and social media. And mostly, World Rugby should realize that the guys on social media that are posting the clips are doing it out of the love of the game. They're trying to share moments and get people excited about the game. And they're not your enemy. They really aren't your enemy. But anyway, let's get back to the laws. So there's some fan-focused rugby laws, as they say, that were brought out. Again, these fans love to know where they are. But let's start with the 20-minute red card. There was a lot of outcry about the 20-minute red card, as we all know, when Sam Cane got a red card in the World Cup final, and New Zealand thought it was terrible. There's an outcry. It's been used in Super Rugby, and New Zealanders tend to think it works very well. Nobody else in the world tends to think it works very well. I know the French are totally against it, and the stories that we see, England and Ireland are quite against it as well. But World Rugby's plowed ahead with the normal sort of arrogance and just going ahead on this sort of global trial, and doesn't really care what anybody really thinks, to be very honest. New Zealand, for all, we love our New Zealand friends, etc. But there's a reason Super Rugby has probably the worst tackling, height and the worst sort of reputation with cards, because often we see on social media and see in games things that would be red cards in the Northern Hemisphere and in European competitions. And I say that like that because South African teams play in those competitions nowadays. So we used to those sort of ways of refereeing. We've seen so often that those sort of things become red cards in the Northern Hemisphere, whereas in Super Rugby, it's sort of treated with disdain. Players often get their heads taken off almost, and it's sort of seen as a yellow card. And it's quite ridiculous, the difference in interpretation between the two hemispheres. So now, instead of going around, and then let me go back to my personal bugbear as well about it, is you have a red card which comes for an accidental clash of heads, an accidental something that happens, and there's so many grey areas in this situation. It's often a huge problem for rugby supporters, because you look at I just take an example. I think it was the Stormers game this weekend against Zebra. There was a moment Ruben van Heerden went in to clean, And the prop-up zebra clutched his head and went out the outside. And they sat for almost 10 minutes there trying to figure out whether this was worthy of a card or not. And it became quite ridiculous. Every single replay showed no head contact, showed nothing that was illegal, but the referee and the TMOs just kept on looking and looking and looking, and eventually it held up the game for so long. So, first of all, I think it's clear that we need to say that nobody wants to see any player get hurt. Nobody ever wants to see lasting effects of players getting hurt from head contact. And all precautions should be taken in terms of that. I'm not a scientist. There's a medical team that looks at these things. They tell you what should work and what shouldn't work, and we should follow their guidelines. Second of all, the head contact protocols there to change behavior. Now, to change behavior, you need to obviously sometimes shock people into behavior. We used to have the thing with the tip tackles. We don't see so many tip tackles anymore because players changed behavior. So tackling lower, and South Africa has been one of the best exponents of that. In the Rugby Championship, had the lowest tackling height. Yaku Paper has been instrumental in that, in getting the Springboks right in terms of that. So tackling height's another thing. But these things do happen. It's a dynamic game. Rugby goes through so many collisions, and inevitably, somewhere, somebody's going to get it wrong. Now, my point is, instead of making it a 20-minute red card and lessening the impact of a red card or a collision or any foul play and making it a lot less, rather just I'd love World Rugby just to clarify what is a red card. There's so many grey areas in this, and unfortunately, every time we think World Rugby's got it right or gets closer to it, there's the law of unintended consequences. And that means a lot of this happens and something new will come up, and it will have us all in not knowing where a red card threshold is and where it isn't. And it creates so much debate about fans, creates so much anger, so much vitriol on social media. Referees get attacked for their decisions. It's certainly not an ideal situation at all for anybody in rugby. So firstly, I think rugby needs to be clear about what's a red card, what is accidental, what's a rugby collision, and all that. And then we can get to the 20-minute red card. So let's look at the 20-minute red card law anyway. It's quite simple. It basically means that if a player gets a red card, after 20 minutes, the team can replace him. The team can't go back. The player can't come back onto the field, but in 20 minutes, after 20 minutes, they can replace him. Now, it's come through widespread criticism. Progressive Rugby, who does the head injuries, said today that it feels like a step backwards in terms of trying to combat head injuries because it lessens the significance of foul play. And I must admit, I could agree. I know a friend of mine, Alex Lowe, writes for the Times in London, did a story recently where he showed that in stats that red cards don't actually mean that there's going to be a blowout, even if it's an early red card. That teams find ways of coming back, and many teams still win the game with 14 men. Think of the Lions last season. They did 2 games where they won with 14 men. Certainly, teams have found ways of banding together and often are better when they're down to 14. The Sharks were down in the Currie Cup recently, down to 12 or 13, I think it was, and the Bulls couldn't put them away. So there's certainly a lot of sort of anecdotal evidence saying that it doesn't give a blowout, it doesn't give a lopsided contest, and to be honest, it almost feels like this law starts to reward somebody who's done foul play. To me, they keep on saying fans want this. Who are these fans that wants this? It's been a push from the Southern Hemisphere, from New Zealand in particular, after the World Cup, and I don't think it's very popular. Maybe you disagree with me, and then you can leave your comment there as well. Be interesting to see what everybody says, so leave a comment. But let's get into the World Rugby's release, and we can talk about that a little bit. So it says here, fan-focused laws move closer to global implementation after positive trials. Now, positive trial says nothing. World Rugby Executive Board endorsement is what makes us move forward. Now, it says here, World Rugby has announced a series of law trials aimed at enhancing both fan and player experience and has moved a step closer to global adoption following successful trials And we still want to see this evidence of successful trials. But anyway, we haven't seen any of this. An endorsement from the executive board. The proposed innovations align with World Rugby's mission to grow the sports audience by making it more accessible and engaging, following the Shape of the Game forum held earlier this year. But okay, let's stop with there and just put a point to this. This obsession that rugby has with speeding up the game. Rugby's always been a game for all shapes and sizes. And when you are a game for all shapes and sizes, from the wingers who go run fast to the fatties out there, people like me who weren't very good at the game but just love playing it as well. When you go to those sort of lengths, there's going to be limitations with how fast the game is. And rugby has this obsession with speeding up the game the entire time. For what reason, we don't know. Forever we're hearing about deep-powering scrums, deep-powering balls, all the things that makes rugby unique. And it sounds like almost like a bunch of scrum halves and wingers got together and that's all they want to play, is just throw the ball around the whole time. Now, there is a game for that. There's called 13-man league, rugby league, and unfortunately, rugby's edging closer and closer to this every single day. And that's the frustration. There are limitations with it when you have props and locks and guys who aren't that mobile. You're going to get rid of the characters of this game, and all you're going to do is going to have more and more athletes, and so there's other parts of the game are going to get less and less impressive, and less well, impressive is not the word, less and less important for the game. And that's my frustration. We seem to have this ever obsession of trying to speed up the game and make it like rugby league. Rugby is unique. There's nothing wrong with the game. For fans, if you want to talk about what fans want, and this is also anecdotal at the end of the day, but I'm sure this will be backed up in the comments and it'll be backed up by rugby fans worldwide. Fans, when you ask them what they want, they tell you the game is too complicated. There's too many laws. There's too many interpretations of laws. You can have watch 3 games in a row and you can get 5 different interpretations for a ruck law, a scrum law, etc. Fans don't often understand. We ask referees to make over 200 decisions in a game, and sometimes more than 300. And in that, referees do make mistakes, and we have to understand that. But now we're making it even more, complicated, even more of a thing for referees to ref, and even less, for fans to understand. But we keep on saying we're speeding up the game. Now, ball in play is the thing they use the whole time. They keep on talking about the amendments that come in has given increased ball in play time by up to 2 minutes and 30 seconds, resulting in more than 33 minutes per match. So what? We all want a contest, fair enough. We don't want stoppages, etc., the entire game. But there's a limit between that and having an overly, so like free-flowing, totally open game where ball in play is what determines if it's entertaining. Ball in play has never been what tells you what's entertaining in a rugby game. There can be ball in play moments and the game can go on. It can be the most horrible game to watch as well. That doesn't rugby. I don't know. I get the feeling sometimes rugby loves trying to make problems where there aren't some. Now, to me, you look at sports that have worked. NFL is probably, fair enough, we can talk about them playing only in America. But NFL has got 4 quarters of 20 minutes. There's probably ball in play time of probably about 15 minutes if you take in total. It takes over 3 hours to complete a game. There's stoppages every 5 seconds. But they've turned it into a marketing entertainment reality. And NFL's now got an annual game in London. It's trying to expand across the world. Rugby is already worldwide. But they keep on making it more and more complicated, and they never consult the players. And all that happens is that players have to adapt, fans get frustrated, and we carry on. And next year we change more rules, and then next year we change more rules. Laws, sorry, not the rules. And so they keep on harping on about that. There's a shorter total match time. Fair enough. We also don't want games to go on for 3 hours. Higher restart contestability. There's a 45% increase in contestable restarts. More dynamic balls. A 10% increase in ball out time. Fewer line-out infringements. Sorry, I just get frustrated reading all this stuff. And quicker set pieces and rucks. Fair enough. We don't want time wasting. And we've seen, especially here in the Southern Hemisphere, on teams playing at altitude, how they slow down the games and how the referees let them get away with it. But there is a limit to all of this. Now, to me, if we go through that, everyone's talking about the red card law, and there's a lot being said about that. But these other ones is also, you can now mark inside the 22-meter area. Who wants that? Yeah, we already seen how they've depowered the scrum. We saw it on Friday night again when the Sharks played the Dragons. Sharks had a scrum 5 minutes from the line. Time was up. They wanted to go in for a pushover try, and all the Dragons had to do was engage early, and they did that on purpose. And the referee gave a free kick because that's the law. But because of the scrum being depowered, the Sharks couldn't scrum again. And teams who have got a dominant scrum are being taken, those opportunities are taken away from them. But this is one of the things World Rugby wants to do. They want to make the maul even less and less a contest and less a part of the game. Now the law, they want one of these laws that comes in that you have to, the maul must be played after one stoppage in the maul. Now that is so subjective because, what is a stoppage in the maul? It could be literally as the ball come down, you transfer the thing. Some referees will let it go on a little bit longer. Some will say that's the maul over. And if you got a referee who really doesn't like mauls, you're not going to get many of them in the game. So then you take the forwards out of it a bit more. You take the deep out of the scrums. And we keep on carrying on about these things, about speeding up the game. At the end of the day, then you take... I always sit here and I laugh because every time the Springboks bomb squad demolishes somebody, we get the stories about how there must be no more substitutions, how substitutions should be banned. World Rugby considering changing the substitutions law. Now, anybody who reads Ross Tucker will tell you that, and he does research for World Rugby, Dr. Ross Tucker, how fatigue increases injuries in rugby and how substitutes are positive for rugby. But people, everybody's little thing that their little prejudice they want in rugby because they don't like a team dominating here, they don't like a team so this single stop mauls to me sounds great in principle. Let's see it implemented. I don't know. It's just play on in the uncontested lineouts. It's okay, I suppose. Protection of the scrum off, that's fine. But again, we're talking about referees that interpret things the whole time. The TMOs now that come in, I'm fine for the TMO, and we must get decisions right, but there's also a time limit. You can't spend 10 minutes looking for something that isn't there, and that's often what happens in rugby as well. And then, the red card is just a total, that's an overreaction to New Zealand. You've got the situation, think of this for a moment. And I'm not suggesting teams do it on purpose, but say now you have injuries, 3 or 4 front row injuries in the game in the first 55, 60 minutes. So you bring on your 2 props, they get injured, so you can't scrum, so you got to go uncontested scrum. The way the law is that if you do that to prevent people from cheating, the law is that you have to then remove a player, so you're down to 14 men. So you can have it that a team gets a red card in the 50th minute, the other team goes down to uncontested scrums. The team with the red card is actually at an advantage because they can have more players on the field than a team that's had injuries up front. I don't know. Make it make sense, guys. I seriously don't know. Maybe I'm just ranting. Maybe you think I'm a bit overboard. This is how I feel about it. I thought I'd put this in a video. Let me know what you think, if you agree or don't agree with it. I just feel rugby keeps on tinkering. They keep on tinkering. And eventually we're going to have a game that nobody wants, nobody likes, and they'll say the fans wanted it from the beginning. So let me know. That's my little rant. Apologies if I just did go on a bit. But if you haven't already, smash the subscribe button and let me know what you think. I'll read all the comments. Cheers.